People ever again now, so.
Okay. So, and I'm recording today, so I can. Couple things. What we're gonna do all of next week. Well, that's when you have clinicals. Is you guys are gonna make a resume and a cover letter, and you probably have done a resume maybe before in another class, and I'm fine with you using that. We're probably gonna work on it a little bit. So that's one thing that we'll be doing this next week. Again, I'm fine with you using one that you've made previously, as long as you go back, tweak it, make sure it's in the same format that I'm giving you, and so forth. Cover letter. Have y'all written a cover letter before, or application letters, what they're called sometimes? So we'll do that too. I think it's important that we know how to do those things before you guys graduate or go on till next year and you start your CNA classes or whatever. So I think it's really important for us to look at those and know what needs to be in there and know what doesn't need to be in there, because there's a lot that your resume says about you, and it's really important that it attract their attention, because if they're looking at 20 resumes, you want yours to stand out. You want to make sure that yours is perfect, as perfect as it can be on paper, so that they don't automatically throw it out just by looking at it. So look real quick at this human relations vocabulary. Anytime you guys are looking for a job or trying to find out about a job, HR is what you'll hear referred to. That's the department that you go to look for a job, and that's human relations. Okay, that's the name of that department. That's what you'll look for. That's if if you call the hospital and you want to figure out about a job and you don't know who to ask, that's who you ask for, is the HR department. Okay. So, anyways, this is just some vocabulary, some things that we'll talk about that are related to. We'll talk about interviewing too. We're not going to do like a formal interview. I think you guys do that. Maybe did that in speech class.
We're doing it right now.
Yeah. So we won't do that, but we will. Are y'all doing? Did y'all just do a resume too?
We did a resume, an application, and we're doing it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good. Well, you can use your resume then.
I use this resume.
There you go. So, okay, assertiveness. What's the difference in assertiveness and aggressiveness? Assertiveness versus aggressiveness. What is assertiveness? I know it says on here, but in your own terms. When you think of someone who's assertive, who do you think of, or what do you think of?
Somebody who's like confident, but like not mean about it. They're just
confident, but not necessarily rude.
Arrogant, not really. They're sure
of themselves. What else?
They know what they're done because they did it before or something.
Yeah, they know what they're talking about. Say that. Do you like to work with people who are assertive?
Yes.
Typically you do, right? You want to work with people who are not afraid to say what they think, right? You don't want them to be rude, but you want them to be forthcoming with information. And it's good because a lot of times people who are assertive let you know their expectations too. So that's a really important thing. You usually gain assertiveness the more confident you become, or the more knowledge you have about whatever your subject is that you're, discussing or whatever. I'm a lot more assertive now as a teacher than I was 5 years ago when I started. That comes with experience and, knowledge about what you're doing. So assertiveness is a good thing. And that's something, if you're going into an interview, you want to be assertive. You don't want to be like aggressive, but you do want to be assertive in that you're confident. You can tell them what ideas you have. You can tell them what you know, and so forth. Okay, your attitude, obviously you know what attitude is, but bypassing, it says a word or expression has different meanings to the speaker and to the receiver. It's really important that whenever you're in an interview, you don't use slang terms, because people don't always know. Well, even in healthcare, if you go up to the nursing home and you start talking to some people with some of the slang terms that we use, some of the slang terms we use are like opposite of what their actual meaning is.
So chill.
Yeah, or he's bad, whatever, he's good. It's not going to make sense. So it's really important that you use Don't use slang terms. Competence, it says the ability to perform a required task. We know that. That's something that you want to portray, that you are competent in what you know and what you've learned. Consideration, thoughtful and sympathetic regard for someone else. I mean, that any kind of we're in the vocabulary one.
Baseball is like 50, because you said it was on there.
Okay. Oh, consideration. It's just important to portray when you're in there that you think of others and that you try to make other people's jobs easier, basically. You don't want to make them harder. Obviously, we know what coworkers are. Employer, employee, hopefully you guys know those terms. Flattery, it says the practice of insincere or excessive praise. Typically, people that you interview with can pick out flattery pretty quickly. So it's not usually going to help you a whole lot to just be like overly brown-nosery, whatever. If you want to give them a compliment, that's fine, but be sincere about it. Don't let it just be like over the top. That's annoying. Goal, your objective. You always need to have your goals in mind. Every interview you ever go to, they're going to say, what are your 5-year goals? What are your 10-year goals? Where do you want to be a year from now? And you need to have those in mind whenever you go into that interview process. Where do you want to be? Don't just say, oh, I don't really know. Maybe I want to do this. You need to have, even if you don't really know, have something that you can say that you can always change it. But you don't want to appear to be someone who's like indecisive and don't really know. That makes you seem kind of like, don't really care, So always have something that you're going to say. What is potentially your actual goal? Go ahead and say that and let that be it. Again, it's not like they're going to pin you down to where you have to be in 5 years. They just want to know that you have vision. So. Honesty, we've talked about that. We know integrity. Hopefully y'all have heard that enough. Integrity is a big time important word you could use in an interview. And that's an idea, write down some buzzwords and things that you could really use. Integrity is really important to me. It's really important that, that people take responsibility and that I take responsibility for my own work and so forth. Those are that's a good word to use. It's going to be something that rings in their ear. We've talked about that before, but human relations, we've talked about that. That's the department usually that you go to, the employer department. Loyalty, a feeling of obligation to one's employer or job. And sometimes you'll be asked about loyalty. How do you feel about loyalty to a specific company or to an organization? You have an idea of, is that important to you? And they probably want it to be important to you. So, negative self-image, your belief that you're inadequate for your job. We all have insecurities and things that we are better at and we aren't better at. It's really important that you know these. Like if you're going into an interview process, you need to know your strengths and weaknesses. That's always going to be a question at an interview. It's really important that when you present your weaknesses, your weaknesses need to be something that you can work on. Okay, and you need to present it that way. Well, this is an area that I'm really working on. Like I'm really working on being, more organized with this particular thing or whatever. Always, you want to turn it into a positive. Whatever negative thing that you might need to say at an interview, you want to turn it into a positive. Like, this is an area that I really need to work on, or this is what I'm doing to work on my organizational skills. Like, I keep detailed notes or I keep, I have a daily plan every day of things that I need to get done. And, I'm getting better at performing all that, whatever, you know what I'm saying? Your negative needs to be, you need to figure out a way to turn it into a positive, something that you're working on, whatever your weaknesses are, okay? If you have a weakness, that's something that you need to be working on anyway. It's not something you can't just be like, oh, well, my personality is I'm just disorganized. That's just my personality. Well, that doesn't really cut it. You need to be, organization is something that's really important in any job. So that's something to work on. You can't just be content with it because that's just the way you are. That's like people saying, people saying rude or hateful things and then being like, well, that's just the way I am. I just say what's on my mind. Well, I don't care if that's how you are or not. It doesn't give you the right to be rude to people or hateful to people or whatever. You can be that kind of person and not be hateful. So, personality is, well, you can't change a whole lot about your personality, but again, there's things that you can work on, like what I was just saying. You may be somebody who speaks your mind, but you need to learn to speak your mind in a way that's, benefits others and doesn't tear them down. Positive self-image, your belief that you're capable of doing your job. It's really important that you go in confident. It's really important that you do have a positive self-image, because otherwise you're not going to be confident to do the skills that you really need to do. Short-term goals, again, you need to have an idea of what your goals are, technical knowledge, what you know about the job itself. Research. Something that you need to do before you ever go into any interview is look at the job description, pick out some keywords in that job description, and make sure you mention those like in your cover letter, or mention those words in your interview, whatever. This is something in the job description, this is what I'm really good at, this is something I can work on, and so forth. Use the words that they use so that they know that you actually researched it and you're not just in there, you didn't just throw your application into the pile. But make sure that you learn about whatever's important to them. Always go look at the mission. Usually on whoever you go and interview with or whatever, they'll have their website and they'll have their mission statement on there. Go look at that mission statement and use some of that terminology in your cover letter or in your interview or so forth. Tolerance. It says the ability to cope with habits or mannerisms of other individuals. It's really important that you're sensitive to the differences of people, regardless of your beliefs or your morals or whatever. It doesn't change how you treat people, ever. Even if you don't agree with them, it doesn't mean that you have to treat them a different way. So that's something that's really important. Not saying that you have to agree with what people do. I'm just saying that you just accept people and work with them regardless of their differences with you. Trustworthiness, we talked about integrity, that kind of falls in there, and then values, just what's important to you. Always look at that job or look at that, whatever it is that's, that you're looking at, and make sure it lines up with your values. Because if that's something that, if you're going to be required to do something in that job that's not within your values, you probably just need to find another job. So, and there's times when people ask you to do things that are not, that don't seem right, and they're going to ask you to do it. You just have to stand your ground. So, okay, so that's vocabulary. I just wanted to go over that before we got started. Let's find my.
Are you have to notice for testing or no?
Your test will be your resume and application. Your resume and cover letter.
Okay.
So, find my copy. We don't actually need this whole packet. I know you guys got this whole packet. We're not going to go through all of this, but we are going to use some things. And since I won't be back, let me just go through. I'm going to get as far as I can today, and I'll finish up the lecture tomorrow on video. I put we're not going to fill out that application. I know it's in there, but it's just in there for us to kind of practice when we talk about it. There's a sample cover letter in here that's really good. Kind of one thing that I'll tell you we'll talk about that when we get to the cover letter. Anyways, there's a couple sample formats you can use. You don't have to use these exactly. You can use the letter format that you learned in your English classes, and that's fine too. The resume worksheet, okay? That's something I would recommend that you go in and fill this out on paper, okay? And then you can go back whenever you start to make your resume, then you can use the information that you've written down on there. And we'll talk about those in detail again whenever we get there in lecture in a little bit. But I just wanted to show you that that worksheet is just, you don't have to turn in that worksheet. It's just for you to jot things down that you're going to put into your resume. And then there's some examples. And I'm sorry this printed so little again. I've got to fix my computer. I don't know what the deal is. There's a couple of examples of resumes. I'm going to show you guys my resume, and you can use it as an example as well. The interview activity, we're going to talk about this, but you don't have to fill it out or anything like that. And then the same thing at the end, that other assignment. Our only assignment for this is going to be the resume and application. I mean, the resume and cover letter. So, just FYI, I know you got the whole packet. Okay, let's look at, let's just go back to the first page. We'll kind of go through and talk about these things. Sometimes, if you guys go into Microsoft Word or some other, whatever you're using to make your resume, there's templates already in there, and you're welcome to use those. Sometimes they get kind of difficult to use because they're like all their spaces and all that, but you can use them. But it may not say resume. It may say curriculum vitae or CV. It's the same thing. Okay, so you might write that down somewhere. I think that's what it says in Microsoft Word, is the CV or curriculum vitae, and that's the same thing as a resume.
Or CV or what?
Curriculum vitae, VITAE.
VITE.
AE. So,
When's this due? When are these due?
they'll be due Friday, but that's all we'll do from now until Friday. Next Friday. Not tomorrow, Friday.
Oh, is that-
No. Next Friday. So that's all Monday, tomorrow, Monday, Thursday, Friday. They'll be good to end class on Friday. Although I don't know what the schedule looks like Friday, but okay, let's look on here. We'll talk about this until it's time to go. This application letter and resume are often the first impression that a prospective employer will have of the applicant. They need to be visually appealing and then free of mistakes. Okay, I'm not talking about spell check. I mean, yes, that's important, but you need to read it. And I'll tell you guys this, on your letter, your resume, whatever you're doing, if you will go back, I think I told you guys this last year when you wrote papers in my class, if you will read it out loud to yourself, that will really help you pick out mistakes. Okay? But you have to read it out loud. It doesn't work if you just go through and read it in your head, because we tend to skip over mistakes because we already know what we want to say. So we miss those. So it's really important that you go back and read it out loud to yourself or to someone else. Visually appealing. It says typewritten always. Okay, hopefully you know that. It needs to be typed on quality paper. Did y'all talk in your other classes about quality paper?
Nope.
Okay. This is something that will make you stand out. And you guys will print your final resumes on this paper. Okay. They make resume paper, and I mean it says resume on here. They make this. I think you can buy this at Walmart. I know you can buy it at Office Max, wherever. And I always get paper that is watermarked. And what that means is that there is a symbol. Scotty, are you listening?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, there is a symbol. I'll pass this around so you guys can see it inside the paper. And it's, it'll just be, it's usually like the brand name of whatever paper you get. And so quality paper is weighted. Okay, it's heavy. It's not like paper you just, get out of the copy machine, or that you're just your everyday printer paper. Like, it's thick. It's almost like cardstock. It's not quite as thick as cardstock, but it's thick. I mean, you can feel the weight of it. I bought white paper for us. I always use ivory paper because it stands out, I mean, if they're looking at a big pile of resumes, it's going to stand out because it's on ivory paper. Now, if y'all ever watch Legally Blonde,
She does pink.
pink paper
That's
and
what I
it
was
smells,
thinking.
you know.
That's her
I would
purview
not
on it.
necessarily recommend using pink paper that smells, but same idea. Okay, it's something that stands out. That was my very first DVD I ever got.
Legally Blonde.
Pretty cool.
I think I have it on VHS actually.
So my very first, I got a DVD player for Christmas one year, and that was one year ago. So I still love it. Okay.
He's like, it smells like perfume.
So this is quality paper, and anytime, again, you're doing a resume, always, I mean, it you know, it costs money, but
Yeah, how much?
I don't really remember, to be honest. And it's probably like $15 or $20 for this thing. But there's like 100. I mean, I've used the same package since I was in college. So, you know, we actually, I don't have it anymore because I used it in here. But yeah, I mean, it's worth the buy because it makes it really stand out. But if you're going to use watermarked paper, one thing that you need to make sure is that when it's printed, the watermark is facing the right direction. So like if I'm going to print my paper, I want to make sure I can read the watermark and it goes the same direction as what I'm writing. You might write that down because you're going to have to do that, and I will grade you on that. You will print it. Okay, so your watermark needs to go the same direction as your, so like if I'm reading the letter here, I should also be able to read the watermark the right way. Like this says southward. Does that make sense?
So will you like, when you write the letter, will you like stop before the watermark, or will you?
No. You can write over the watermark. I mean, you
and
can
still be able to read?
Yes. But you just it needs to go the same direction as you're writing. Okay. What this does is this shows that you pay attention to detail, which says a lot about you. And it shows that you care about quality things, which also says a lot about you. So it's worth it to do that extra, to spend that little bit of extra money, you know, to make sure it's formatted correctly and all that. It's going to make a big difference. Okay. It says, okay, they took time and effort into making this. You
Do
know,
they
like
really look at that?
yeah. I mean,
They look at every
if it's
little
me,
detail.
if I'm a boss, yes, you know, it's going to stand out. So
That's what I'm like, what if it didn't stand out? I just paid $15.
if you get the job, you're going to make $15, you know.
Like first hour?
Yeah, I mean, so I don't, you know.
Even more.
And besides that, like I said, I mean, this has 100 pages in it. So it's not like,
Unless you like mess up so bad recently.
I mean, of course, half of mine's gone because we printed out so many times. But yeah, I mean, it's worth it. To me, it's worth that, you know, because it is going to stand out. We'll ask Dr. Wilson whenever we go to Northeast Texas
I gotta
College
remember that.
if that would make a big difference. But I mean, this is what I learned in nursing school.
Something that probably would be.
So
Yeah.
I mean, that's where I learned about watermark paper and all that kind of stuff. So, and I want you guys to be able, these resumes that you make, like these will be ones that you guys can use and go off of from here on out. So, you know, they're gonna, I mean, I want them to be a good quality and so forth. Anyways, but I just want you guys to get into the habit of using that. Okay, so free of mistakes again, punctuation, spelling, formatting. Okay, if you're using an outline on your application and you've got a bullet here and then your next bullet's over here, it just doesn't look very good. Okay, so make sure it's formatted correctly. Application forms, says guidelines, print or type everything very neatly, always. If you got an application, you want them to be able to get in touch with you and you want them to know who you are. If they can't read it, they're not even going to give it the time of day. They're just going to toss it to the side. Because here's the thing, not all jobs, sometimes we go into interviews and you think they need me, you know, you think, okay, well, I've got all this to offer, but if they've got 20 applications, like yours has to stand out somehow, or at least needs to be, you know, legible. If not, they're just going to say, okay, well, I've got these 19 other ones. I'm not even going to fool with that. all blanks need to be completed. If you don't have anything to put in there, you just need to put NA or whatever. You know, you don't want to leave it blank we don't ever leave anything blank in healthcare anyway, so. Read the instructions carefully. Okay, if you go and look in here, look at this application in here, in this packet. Always have people, well, this one doesn't really do that. I feel like the old one did. Always, sometimes it has like first name. It's hard to tell if it's written above the line or below the line and you're not sure which line to write it on. You know, if you're not sure, or go look at the whole, this one doesn't really do that because it's right in the middle. But always look at that, because I always have people who will turn in an application, and I think they've changed it since I've printed it before, who they've written on the wrong line and then they ran out of space at the bottom. You know, it's like the last one is their email and they have to write it in the blank spot because they've already used up their lines because they weren't really paying attention to where to write. So if that's the case, just get a new one and start over. You don't want it to have a whole bunch of scribbles and stuff on it. Okay. Anything else on here? You always, your high school, college, any other, all of that will always be on any application that you do. Okay, application, it says answer the questions truthfully, okay, and then provide only positive information. Okay, you don't have to write down, unless they specifically ask, which I don't even think they can, you don't have to write down that you got fired for showing up to work an hour late every day, you know. If they ask you if you got fired, just, if you did, then you just put yes and leave it at that. They can ask you that question later if they want to. But you don't need to give away negative information about yourself that's not necessary. Okay, now if they ask it, that's a different story. But you know, there's no reason to just give it away in the beginning. And you want yourself to look really good on here. Now, again, you don't stretch the truth. You only put down what's true. But that doesn't mean that you have to put down, you know.
Full truth.
Well, I'm not even
Well,
telling you
don't
not to put down the whole truth.
information
I'm
they
just
don't
saying,
ask.
yeah, you just don't put information that they don't ask. That would be negative. You know, if they ask it, you have to put it on there. But yeah, they can ask specifics in an interview if they want to know specifics. So, yeah, I'm not telling you not to answer the whole truth. I'm just saying you don't have to write down your whole life story on an application. And if those things are asked, you know, don't say, well, just don't make excuses. Just be matter of fact about it. You know, like, I really had a hard time getting to work on time, but that's something I've been working on, and I've done this and this and this to, you know, to make sure that that doesn't happen again. So you always have something to be working on. Okay, application letter or cover letter, you'll hear me call it. This is a block business letter, it says, or a modified block. You can use whatever format you want. Again, I would put it on the same watermarked paper. Okay, that's what I always do. So put it on the same paper, make sure your watermarks go in the right direction. Appearance, it says street address, everything in the top left. I always put my email because that's probably how they're going to contact you. That's another thing before we start on this. If your email is like, I don't know, sillygirl99 or whatever, basketball lover 22, you need to get a real email address. Okay, just make one this week. Okay.
That's mine, Jason McGraw, Yahoo.
Lovely lips,
Justin
lady.
Bieber.
Mine
Lover.
is kind of fangirlish.
So make you a new one that is a good, solid email address. First name, last name, first letter of your first name and last name. Something that is, I mean, you can have a number in there if you need to, because I know a lot of them are taken. But it doesn't need to be something that's like, you know.
Exactly just for it.
Do it.
Mine's exactly just for it.
There you go. That's perfect. Okay, so if you have some crazy, you know, junior high girl email address, make a new one this week. You can get on Gmail. It doesn't cost a thing to do
What is
that.
yours?
So make you a new one.
I really
What
want
is
to know
yours?
yours.
Sure.
That's one of them, but the other one is Harry 204. Harry Styles, I love him.
Oh, my Lord.
So,
I had to know what hers was.
I had
So,
it since like
exactly.
the 8th grade.
but you want to seem as professional as you can. So make you a new account. You need one anyway. If that's really what it is. So make sure you do that this week. Okay. Always use professional language. Okay. We don't use contractions.
Isn't
Write that on there somewhere. No contractions. Don't use don't, isn't,
It's
can't.
like pretty much in my life.
What's up?
You can go by that. I think that same website, that Purdue website, has probably has letter, how to make a letter, whatever. But I don't like contractions. You don't put contractions in any research papers that you do. You don't put contractions.
We learned that.
Did
You
I know
learned
that?
that last year in my class.
Yeah. That too.
Yeah. So, but professional language. Okay, don't look like you're a fifth grader writing this paper. Salutation. Make sure it's addressed to the appropriate person. Okay, what that means is don't just write to whom it may concern. Call the place and say, you know, who do I need to, you know, or figure out who you're going to interview with, or figure out. You could put dear, you know, human relations department or whatever, but it needs. Don't just put to whomever, okay? Because that's just like, oh, let's just throw our application out there and hopefully somebody catches it. You know, address it to a person or a department or a specific thing or person. So like it says, hiring committee and so forth. Make sure you begin it with the appropriate prefix. Okay, I had, well, maybe you were here that year. I had somebody come speak, and I called her Mrs., and she was like, "It's Doctor." So,
Was it last year?
I don't remember.
I think it's not those.
You told
Girl.
us.
I think I know.
No, I don't. It wasn't her. I mean, it could have been, but it
There
was
was a
somebody else.
little bit
So,
last year.
anyways, make sure you get the right one, because it aggravates people when you don't, like I did. Okay, and I feel like a big dumb. Opening paragraph. Make sure your first line needs to be something that stands out. It doesn't have to be something crazy, but it needs to be something. It doesn't actually have to stand out. I always just introduce myself. You know, my name is Katie Bird, registered nurse, whatever. Okay. I mean, it can be something that's like really interesting if you want it to be, but you don't want a whole lot of fluff in this letter because otherwise they're not going to take time to read it. But I always put my name in there first because I want them to know who wrote it and who I am. I'm like introducing myself to them. It says it incorporates company-specific information on how this position fits your career goals. So how does this job line up in your career path? Or how does this, whatever, line up, you know, and what you want to do. Make sure you identify what position you're wanting so that they know. You're just giving them the information that they need to know about you and what your plans are. The body, it says, consists of 1 to 3. I would say keep it to 1. You really only want like 3 paragraphs, because if it gets too long, they're not going to read it. They don't have time for that. Ain't nobody got time for that.
So wait, about how long would it be about page?
I would even say, I mean, you're going to have 3 paragraphs. You want each paragraph to be at
Did you
least
say
probably
1?
4 sentences. So 3 paragraphs.
You said 3 paragraphs.
You got your opening, the body, and then the closing. So
Oh, I was
Oh,
thinking
okay, yeah.
3 body paragraphs.
no, 1 body paragraph. That's now you could put 2 if you just had a whole lot of information to put in there, but I don't want to say the shorter the better, but it's kind of
The more
is the shorter the better.
straightforward.
Yeah, you just don't want it to be really fluffy. Highlights your most marketable attributes. So what are the things that you're best at that makes you the person that they want? Why is integrity important to you? Or what are some other things that are really, you know, that you portray really well, that you've learned, that you're really good at? Whatever. You really want to talk yourself up, but not in like a weird groundless way. Just be confident in what you can do and what you know. And then again, look at that job description. What does it say that you need to be? Put that in your letter. Okay, I'll finish this tomorrow. But that's what you guys will work on all next week.